In 2004, Rockstar gave the world a game that redefined open-world adventures, crime sagas, and freedom of choice. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was released for the original PlayStation 2, followed by the Xbox and PC 1 year later. Taking the world by storm, it became the fastest-selling video game in its first week and outdid its predecessors in every single way imaginable. While it wasn't the first game to achieve such acclaim, it was certainly the first to do so on such a massive scale. San Andreas wasn't just about missions, it was about living in a city fueled by chaos and ambition. And even 20 years after its release, many still consider it to be one of the greatest video games of all time. Now I'll be honest, San Andreas probably isn't one of the greatest games of all time, at least that's according to this arbitrary poll I found on Reddit, but back then, it was everything. And if you don't agree, then you can kindly go stand over there with everyone else who thought Metal Gear Solid Revengeance was a personality trait.
Nanomachines and tax evasion!
There's really no denying just how groundbreaking San Andreas was upon release. It emerged at a time when games were slowly shedding the stigma of being just for kids, and with it being the last game to come out for the 6th generation of consoles, Rockstar made sure to push not just the PlayStation 2 to its limits, but the general public as well. You start off in Los Santos, aka Budget Los Angeles, if LA had even more crime and fewer dreams. Unlike previous entries where you played as a generic mobster or mute psychopath, okay, Tommy could talk, but what other defining traits did he have besides being Italian?
AIDS?
Here you play as Carl Johnson, who is probably one of Rockstar's most unique characters. He's young, inexperienced, and often naive and arrogant. While he's not a good person by any means, he still cares deeply for his family and his hood, giving him layers of complexity that previous protagonists lack. He's human, and that's why a lot of people like him. The game takes place 5 years after the death of CJ's brother Brian, with him returning to his hometown after finding out his mother had been killed in a drive-by shooting. It's on his way back home that he encounters the game's main antagonists, police officers Frank Tenpenny and Eddie Pulaski. Tenpenny, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, is arguably one of the best villains in any Rockstar game. Every time I play through this game, I hate his fucking guts. And the voice acting really amplifies his character, making him all the more dislikable. They end up taking all our drug money, frame us for a crime they committed, and call the taxi driver a slur.
Get out of here, you greaseball bastard!
It's upon CJ's arrival in Grove Street that you're greeted with what's possibly one of the most well-constructed opening sequences in gaming history.
What are you doing, Carl? Brian, stop it!
Quit it! Moms are here.
Mom, they're up to something.
The level of detail on CJ's face is stunning for a game.
You picked the wrong house, fool!
Anyways, you nearly get killed, go to your mom's funeral, argue with your brother.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Hey, he says that line again.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Steal a bike and move back in. This first mission establishes the narrative almost perfectly, and it only gets better from here. The relationship between CJ and his brother Sweet is probably one of my favorite sibling dynamics in fiction, even if Sweet is a moron most of the time. Then there's Big Smoke, who even after 20 years is remembered for delivering one of the most gut-wrenching portrayals in gaming. From the streets of Los Santos to the deserts of Las Venturas, CJ's journey is more than just about survival. It's a deep dive into the underworld of crime, betrayal, and family. The story also feels way more connected and polished than in previous entries, where the narrative was often basic until they cap it off with a grand finale. San Andreas, on the other hand, offers a far more engaging and cohesive experience, with memorable characters and countless iconic lines.
I'll have 2 number 9.
The story also takes place during the PS2 era of Rockstar, so naturally there are a lot of returning characters that appear here and even play significant roles more down the line. However, the story itself can feel a bit scattered at times. While it does feature a longer story with more chapters and complex subplots, it also just has so many god-awful fucking missions that just ruin your flow until you beat them. Case in point, every single mission where you work for zero. Picture this. You've just escaped your psychotic girlfriend in the countryside and settled in a new city. You finally settle down there, and once you do, your main objective is to hunt down one of your former friends that nearly got you killed. So why, on God's green earth, Am I playing with fucking toy planes? It would be one thing if we could make money like this afterwards as a side mission, but we don't, so why the fuck is this even here? GTA has always had its fair share of goofy missions, but it's in San Andreas where it's most noticeable. One minute you'll be taking out a massive drug cartel, and then in the next you're practicing fucking swimming. It's the gaming equivalent of going from doing wheelies in a Ferrari to using a razor scooter with no wheels. It's here where San Andreas' biggest flaw becomes apparent, and that's that it tries to do too much. The abundance of content is great, don't get me wrong, and the non-linear storytelling often pays off, like in the Area 69 raid or the deconstruction mission, but some missions are just a chore, especially on a second playthrough. Even missions that are integral to the story sometimes suffer from this, but at least there's a reason they're there. Still, San Andreas arguably has the best story in the entire GTA series despite a few pacing issues. The majority of the game is still filled with action-packed and interesting missions. The casino heist and hotel shootout are prime examples, with the former being one of my personal favorites. The effort that went into these missions is apparent, and while the gunplay hasn't aged perfectly, they're still fun to play. Another part that also made these missions more enjoyable was that you could approach them however you wanted to. While I do still enjoy the modern day mission design Rockstar games, they're about as interactive as a mobile ad. There are some parts that are scripted, but usually you can approach the missions however you like. Don't like taking down the boats one by one while in midair? Just land your jet and take them down by yourself. This old man challenges you to a sword fight? Shoot his fucking head off with a shotgun. The game really does excel in making you try literally everything before returning to its regular formula of killing people and driving cars. And most of the content that you access through missions can be easily accessed from just roaming around the open world. Okay, while that may not sound impressive today, you have to keep in mind that this is a PS2 game. A lot of gamers at the time didn't even know that it was possible to fit this much content onto a single disc. Sure, the frame rate was choppy at times, but it's clear that this was one of the biggest system pushers of its generation. In terms of side content, the game had ambulance missions, truck driving missions, boxing, gang wars, hitting the gym, and so much other stuff that will give achievement hunters a run for their money. Now, I'll admit, a lot of these missions do get repetitive after a while, but they at least offer you bonuses like more health and endurance. With so many RPG-like elements of the game, San Andreas arguably gives you the most freedom in customizing your character out of any GTA game. It allowed you to fully customize CJ from his physique to his outfits. Your stamina and strength can also be increased via going to the gym or making CJ run really fast. The weapon variety is also greatly improved. You had all your basic stuff like machine guns, AKs, pistols, to more obscure weapons like shovels, flamethrowers, katanas, and dildos.
What the fuck?
How the fuck did you get in my... The mastery of these weapons could even be improved just by using them more, allowing for dual wielding and better aim. Sure, it's not realistic, but it's fun, and that's what matters most in a GTA game, or any game in general. The increased amount of firepower also comes in very handy, since by the end of the main story, when you're taking over territories, most of the enemies just suck your health dry if you stand around them for too long. This part being especially difficult on the console versions. Gangs are obviously another major focus of this game, with it featuring the most prominent gang presence in the series, with each one acting differently towards the player. Ballas and Vagos are always hostile, while the Triads and Aztecas remain neutral. Even the Italian mob gets involved if you go into debt at their casino, coming after you if you don't pay up. You can even come across drug dealers and random pedestrians that shoot people from time to time. Seriously, Rockstar did an amazing job at implementing these different gangs into each area of the map, making the world feel even more alive than it already was. Speaking of the map, it's huge for a PS2 game, with 3 cities, rural areas, deserts, forests, and a mountain that reaches the sky limit. Each area is distinct from the weather to the pedestrians, and the scale of the world is impressive, especially with the original's fog. The atmosphere of the desert and forest areas give off an eerie, almost otherworldly vibe, where I've probably spent a good 100 hours looking for Bigfoot and aliens. The gang wars and territories also feature another layer of engagement to the open world, especially when you start taking over Los Santos. When you factor in the radio stations and the scenery, each short drive to a different city or even a street can feel like an actual road trip. Each state has its own collectibles scattered throughout the map, giving the player more incentive to explore, since stuff like the oysters can give you a special ability to hook up with any of the girlfriends.
Your brain doesn't fuck.
CJ can have multiple of them at any given time, and is provided with bonuses like being bailed out of jail and special outfits. Also, this whole gameplay mechanic caused an entire outrage because of the sex minigame. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, I'll be the first to admit that the driving and shooting parts haven't aged the best in some areas, but they're still definitely passable. And with the different weapons you can find/buy, you're bound to find a playstyle that will suit you. However, like most GTA games, the best part for some people is just running around in the open world and wreaking havoc. And it's in that area that GTA San Andreas shines the most. Cops will come after you in SWAT vans, helicopters, motorbikes, and if you're using a plane, they'll even hunt you down with jets. While the AI does show its age at times, the way the cops aggressively come after you still makes for a a fun time, which can be increased thanks to the large amount of cheats the game provides you with. You got stuff like spawning in a chopper and bullet resistance, SOYAM, which gives you more money, and Sting Like a Bee, which allows you to punch people really hard. Want to make every pedestrian come after you with a rocket launcher? Sure, why not? Flying tractors, floating cars, fuck it, why not? Slow down time, jetpacks, infinite rockets. It's incredible how they added so many features to the game that can make it fun without even having to play it its intended way. There's a reason why even in the year 2024, it still has a very active online community that still makes mods and talks about beta content. The controversy this game had around it when it first came out was massive, but the impact it left on gaming was even bigger. Sure, it's not objectively the best game ever, and I don't even think it cracks the top 15, but the level of care and quality that Rockstar put into it speaks volumes about what can be achieved when a studio is truly committed to pushing the limits.